Not that long ago, I got to sit down with Mark Neon Roberts from Grinding Gear Games to talk all about the new expansion to Path of Exile 1. Now, this game has been going for over a decade. They have a lot of cool stuff planned. Here was our conversation. And just to preface this, it was more about what it's been like working on Path of Exile for that amount of time. Take it away, Destin from the past. Well, the first official interview question I have for you, and thank you everybody for joining us, is why Neon? It says Mark Neon. Can you explain Neon?
It's just an alias. I can't even remember what game I was playing, but before I was working at Grinding Gear, I was playing Path of Exile, and before that I was playing games all the way since I was whatever age I was. And it's just an alias I picked up along the way was Neon Spider. I don't know why. I was very young when I did it. I don't know why people, I think I was Stormer originally when I was like 8. And then there ended up being too many people called Stormer. And so I tried to find something weirdly unique, and I came across it at some point and it stuck. And then it shortened to Neon at some point. And because I guess it's easier to say than removing a bunch of the syllables, that is. And that's just what it is now. So people just call me Neon. Others call me Mark. Some people call me Ruckus.
Why Ruckus? Well, now you got to tell me why Ruckus.
I just started saying the word a lot, honestly. I used to always be like, oh my God, it's a ruckus, and that's a ruckus. And you'd see things on screen. It's like, this build is a ruckus. And then I started saying the word a lot, and everyone started calling me Ruckus, like my friends and whatnot, and people at work. And then I actually got, like, my license plate is like kind of take on Ruckus now as well. So I drive Ruckus, and my cat's name is Ruckus, and there's lots of Ruckus going on in my life. And so, yeah.
I love it. That's really, really cool. Don't feel too bad, because my original handle was like Pyrotechnic, and it's because I thought it was related to like computer science or something like that, the Pyrotechnic Society, but it had nothing to do with that. So everybody just thought it was like an arsonist. And I was like, no, that's not how I meant it. So I ended up changing it further on. But
it happens to a lot of people. Everyone gets their weird little aliases they have when especially if they're young gamers, and then a lot of sensible people change it and some don't and stick through. And so, yeah, but mine stuck for probably like 15 plus years now, I reckon, of getting called Neon. And I mean, at least that, actually, considering I started at GGG, 12 years ago, probably. And I was known as Neon before that, so.
Got it.
Yeah.
Now, so I was looking up your name and just looking for content about you, and I found a picture of you sitting in front of a computer that's like 13 years old. Let me see if I can find it really quick.
Okay.
I lost it. But anyway, I was sort of curious, when did you start with Grinding Gear Games? And I'll look for the picture while you answer the question. When did you start, and what has changed? Is this actually you? I don't know if you can actually see this. Let me just. All right. So, is this you? Or did Reddit make a mistake? Me. That's you?
Yeah, I remember that. I remember sitting there in the corner of the office.
What are you doing in this photo?
What am I doing? Apparently doing some excessive searing bond usage. That's what, original office location. Yeah, that would have been close to when I had started. I think I intentionally wrote some misleading stuff on the whiteboard behind to try and make people think something was happening. Like, I can't remember exactly what it said, but I don't know. That was just me being in QA, having fun, testing the limits of how many totems I could spawn. I don't know. It's good times. It was the good times.
I don't bring it up for no reason. Now, you weren't there when the game started. That was like the original crew of everybody. You came on a little bit later on. So when did you come on, and what was the vibe like at Grinding Gear Games when you started? Like, what was it like? What was your experience like in those early years?
Let me try and, I'll only remember it as far as I can, but.
Was it like, go get us the coffee?
No. There's never been anything like that at Grinding Gear. I remember. I mean, I've told the story of my hiring a little bit, but I can't remember how much detail I went into. But I joined as QA, and I remember my very very first thing was that I actually thought I just like didn't get the job because I was like, there's no way. I thought I had messed it up on such a bad level you'd have never even seen when I went in for my what they called an interview. But it was very 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 casual. Unlike what I had expected, I had been kind of taught to expect corporate, you dress nice and you go in and you wear this and you impress everyone and you go in and everyone's in, casual gear. And it was a very clear, just like different environment. And I was like, oh, okay, this is a scene I'm not, I kind of missed the mark on what I assumed I was walking into here. And then I guess that was kind of just like, it was a bunch of gamers just in a random office in Titirangi in this tiny, I don't know how small it was. It was like 30 people or something working there at the time. But I remember coming in and going, whoa, this is crazy. Like, it's just a bunch of computers. I didn't really know what to expect, but I guess I had built up this like gaming as something in my head and like game developers as this thing. So I didn't quite have it figured out. And then what it was definitely not the case. Very, very casual, informal talks. I remember talking to Chris. I definitely messed it up, like without question. Thankfully, they gave me a chance. I came in as QA. And I remember, I think I started, and it was like the first, it was like the second or third day. I remember them going, we want to deploy a patch. Now, the game wasn't out at this point. It was still in open beta, I want to say.
Okay.
And I remember they were like, we want to test a patch. And he's like, so you let me know when it's good to deploy. And, it was long enough ago I can talk about it now. I remember not even being told what was in the patch. And I'm like, okay, I don't really know what I'm supposed to test. So it was kind of like, test everything. So I was like, okay, well, I guess I'll test everything. So, play through the game. There's a little bit of stuff there, some cheats and some kind of a basic checklist and all of that. But I remember I'm like, all right, sweet. I'll test this patch. I'll let you know. And then he gave me a key to the office. And he's like, all right, just let me know, tomorrow. And I went in the office and I was like, okay, so now I have a key to this place. And I went in, I was by myself and I was like, I don't know what I'm expecting here. And I remember testing this patch. And then I was like, I tested it for a while and I was like, look, I'm pretty confident nothing's broken here, but I don't exactly know what I'm supposed to be testing. And then I was like, all right, Chris, it's good to go. And then the patch deployed and I think everything was fine. And I was like, I guess I did my job well. Whereas now it's like, I changed how this works, of course. Now it's like, here's the exact list of every change in the patch. Here's all the checklists you got to do. Here's everything you test. And there's a 16-person QA team, and then there's all these different things. Lots going on, at least. It was very different back then when I was the only QA. I came in on a weekend to test a patch that was getting deployed, and I was just like, oh my god, I'm stressing out here. But I am the kind of person that likes being thrown in the deep end and seeing how long I can tread for. And I think I successfully did it. Otherwise, I wouldn't quite be here where I am now. But yeah, very, very different vibe. Very much more casual, much more what I call cowboy, I guess. Lots of stuff just happening. Not a lot of procedure, not a lot of any of that going on. So, and then, but a lot less people, lot less on the line, I guess, back then as well.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah.
So for you, you've been with the game that whole time. You've been working on Path of Exile, not Path of Exile 2. Well, maybe a little bit. I don't know. But you've been really working with the Path of Exile franchise for that long. What keeps it fresh? Why are players still invested? Like the Twitch numbers weren't hugely impacted by Path of Exile 2. It seems like there's sort of two communities there thriving. Can you tell me a little bit more what it's been like experiencing it as a through line?
Just to clarify, I do work on both, and it's just pretty much, I work more than I'm supposed to, but that's just because I love it. And I do put a large amount of hours into both, 100%. I am integral to both, 100, like through and through. So it's not like I'm more on one than the other.
I didn't mean to imply otherwise. I've seen you on the stream, so I know you work on.
I just wanted to clarify, in case.
Apologies.
All good. I don't want people to think that give one of them is my second child or my second. I don't know if that's the correct. Whatever. Anyway, they're both my priority, both my main focus all the time. So In terms of the how do you keep it fresh? Well, I have a couple ways. One, play the game a lot. I think it is important for the directors to play the game. I think that you should be not making decisions. I mean, obviously, a director should be making decisions and driving the direction. And I think in order to be doing that successfully, if you are not playing that game a lot, you are probably not doing it well enough. Obviously, aside from reaching out to the player base, it's very easy to hear a thing and either shrug it off or say, yes, we should do that. But you should have your own beliefs, and you should probably have that from a player's perspective. Now, I have like over probably 100,000 hours at this point in the game, and I haven't counted my PoE 2 hours, but I'm playing and playing and playing. It's going to be pretty crazy going forward, trying to play both of them to the same extent, but it's fine. I can do it. I can somehow do it. But yes, you should be playing the game, and you should be making decisions from a player's perspective as yourself, and of course by absorbing the player's perspective from everyone else. Now, on top of that, though, I mean, look, one thing we've got going for us, and we have had this whole time, is that we patch pretty aggressively. I'd say a lot of games have, annual updates and whatnot. You get large 9-month windows and whatnot. And yes, we just had that for Path of Exile 1, but that is out of the norm. We're obviously getting back into it. So look, being able to update the game, what we often did for 3 months and now, maybe 4 months, and being able to do both games every 4 months, that kind of schedule is going to be the thing where people are constantly picking up the game and constantly playing the game. And as long as you are obviously then emphasizing how do we keep our players happy and also bring in new players, you're going to grow, you're going to get bigger. And if you just keep updating, keep adding heaps of content, lots of content, changing things, when things are bad, you make them better. Honestly, it's just a matter of making the best game possible, or now games. And it'll just grow and grow and grow. It's honestly as simple as that. It isn't like there is some wizardry to it or any crazy psychology beyond just make the best game possible and update it as much as you can and just stay efficient. If things take too long, people are going to fall off. And obviously if things are too quickly, well, people probably will be happy actually for a while, but you could start sacrificing quality. So obviously you find this very good rhythm, you stick to it, you stay consistent, and you do what the players need and what the game needs. It really is just as simple as that.
Do you think this update's going to see the numbers that Settlers of Calgar saw? Like, I think you broke your Steam concurrent record with that release. And like, why did that happen? Like, what was it about that particular update?
I mean, it was huge. It was a massive update. I mean, the change to character balance was immense. Obviously, the Settlers League itself was massive. It's hard to look at. Well, obviously, this is bringing an in-game expansion, which is long overdue. And Settlers didn't do that. And we've obviously got a pretty cool league here. But, it's hard to compare the size of it to the Settlers of Calgar. That being said, obviously, there's a few factors to consider. You've got Path of Exile 2 has probably introduced a large number of players to Path of Exile as a concept, and a lot of those players are probably about to try PoE 1, especially with a new update. That's something to consider. But also, you probably have a lot of people who are, it's been a year, we might have kind of fallen off the radar for some of those people in terms of PoE 1, the ones that were just focused on Path of Exile 1. But on the other hand, you could look at it and say, hold on, it's been a year. Those players are like frothing to come back. They're like, I need my Path of Exile 1 dose. So there's a few variables, and I honestly don't know how to predict where it's going to land. I think we probably will get around the same numbers. However, I honestly don't know. I've been asking myself the same question, and it's honestly very, very hard to predict these things. So again, I just focus on like, look, I'm just going to, I don't, pulling more numbers or not, I'm just going to make the best game I possibly can and get the best game possibly made, and that is all there is to it. And if the numbers come, they come. And if they don't, I'll look into why and see if we can make people happier to then come back. But I don't know. I have no idea.
Have you found that players are enjoying the flavor of Path of Exile 2 or Path of Exile 1 and then sticking with that? Because I saw sentiment online. A lot of people were like, Path of Exile 2 is great, or Path of Exile 2 isn't for me. I really wish they'd focus on Path of Exile 1 for some players. What have you seen? Like, what's the data showing you behind the scenes?
Oh, no, 100%. There is an audience for 1 and an audience for 2. like just clear cut. And there is an audience for both, 100%. And it is very important that we make a game for Path of Exile 1 players, we make a game for Path of Exile 2 players. We have those distinct audiences. We want to keep both happy. And yeah, you do see a little bit of what I call to myself at least, a bit of a civil war between the PoE 1 players and the PoE 2 players, where every time we posted a Path of Exile 2 update, you get some PoE 1 players going, what the, I don't want this, I want my PoE 1 update. And then when we started announcing PoE 1 stuff again, you saw some people going, hold on, why are you working on that game? Work on the other game. And the reality is, we're finally, again, back in the groove, working on both. I don't know, we're obviously just announcing and working on 326, but also we're doing 021 for Path of Exile 2, and we've got both updates going. And we're at the point where now you're seeing news for both games posted on the same day, and we're only going to get more efficient and better at maintaining both, and that's going to be very, very good. But like right now, we are working on 021 for Path of Exile 2. We are hoping to deploy it this week. We've done a post on it. A lot of that came from, me playing and absorbing feedback while also making, and getting the team to make the next expansion for PoE 1. So certainly figuring out how to multitask better, let's say, or have multi-threading going on with both games. And yeah, should be good.
Speaking of both games, what did you learn with Path of Exile 2 that you were able to implement in Path of Exile 1? Anything?
There's been the subtle it's very easy to do quality of life features. Like that's just coming in constantly at the moment. A lot of the stuff already that has been coming into PoE 1's QOL has come from PoE 2. Because again, especially I would say even with settlers, it kind of started happening, right? And then obviously seeing a little bit more of it now. Things come up where in PoE 1, obviously the passive tree's been the passive tree for so long, and now in PoE 2, you have people going, passive tree searching is terrible. I can't find the nodes I'm typing for. And there's a bunch of problems, and you look into obviously, but it's the same as PoE 1, and so, but it's it's bad there too. So obviously you improve it, you port it back. Great. So obviously we're going to have passive tree searching improvements coming to PoE 2 very soon. 021 is the intention, and then we're going to put that in PoE 1 as well. Now, that stuff will just happen in terms of QOL, in terms of features. But the other thing that's happening in terms of PoE 2 to PoE 1 is that now we're a game that reuses as much as possible in smart ways. So you can make a monster or a boss feel entirely different by changing the model, right? And that is a thing you can do, the actual 3D model, and you can use the exact same rig, exact same animations. And so you get to redo the model, redo the VFX, and you get those two departments to be completely untouched. And all of a sudden now you've got a boss in both games. They look very, very different. And as long as you don't overdo the reuse of a single given asset, you don't get people won't really notice, or you use skills in different contexts. It's a beam in this, it's a bullet hell in that, it's a, there's a whole way to mix and match that kind of stuff. Now we get to do that constantly. We are making these insanely, high detailed, very well animated bosses for PoE 2 constantly. We're just churning out bosses and monsters and everything. We have the hundreds and hundreds of monsters in the campaign. And now anytime we want to come to do PoE 1 and we want to add expansions and add content and add much like the pinnacle bosses you just saw, we're going to obviously take some of those animation sets from PoE 2, we're going to port them across, we're going to make a new model, and now all of a sudden we've got a new boss that's kind of reusing at least a couple of our departments. And sometimes you reuse more than others, and other times you redo the entire set and whatnot, but you at least get to kind of harvest one from the other. And if we were to make anything new for PoE 1, probably do the same thing, can port it across. And being able to do that is just going to be is huge. And again, players often will never notice. Honestly, even as developers, most people will never notice the level of reuse. But it does happen, and it is very, very useful. And so constantly I'm just sitting here thinking everything that gets made in PoE 2, I'm like, how can that go in PoE 1? What expansion is that in? How's that getting added? And constantly just doing that. So,
I am a little curious. Is there ever a world where you see Path of Exile 1 coming to an end?
Well, the end of the world, I guess. I don't know. Hopefully not. You said, "Is there a world?" And I would say it's the end of that world. I don't see that at all. No, I. It's certainly. I mean, even just thinking about that, I am like, what would it even take for me to see that end in sight? Um, I mean, it would require no one to play it, right? Like, and is that going to happen? Almost certainly not. So, no, I guess I'm just we're going to go forever and ever until, I mean, like speaking, obviously, there's a point in where cost and, one of the scales doesn't quite weigh, but we're not even close to that point. So, and I don't see that ever happening, honestly. I don't understand how that would happen. But, whoever knows. However, no, I don't ever see that happening.
Can you say that about Path of Exile 1 and Path of Exile 2?
Yeah, 100%. 100%.
Because
I don't know if you've ever seen the Chris talk, where it's like how to make a game that lasts forever. Well, it wasn't hypothetical. It was real.
Yeah, I think about a lot of these games. I saw a story recently about Final Fantasy 11 and how it almost ended at one point because there wasn't support, and then all of a sudden they got a bunch of support for the game, and that's still going on. I was playing that back in the PS2 era, and then I think about Path of Exile 1 and how long that's been around and how engaged your player base has been. Like having a spike like you did with Calgar is really, really impressive. So now you're talking about this cadence: June, Path of Exile, August, PoE 2, October, PoE 1. Do you think you're going to be able to keep up with that cadence, or is Jonathan Rogers going to make another one of his amazing apology videos to say that he messed up? If he watches this, I'm sorry. I'm just joking around.
No. Like, hey, look, I mean, he apologized because we fucked up.
Yeah.
That's the truth to it, right? And he apologizes and he takes that, but like that is equally my fault. And I am glad that he's the one, who's willing to fall on the sword, so to speak. But like, we both caused that to happen. However, like, we're pretty on track now. We have a very good plan for at least the year, and I cannot see a reason why we wouldn't be able to successfully continue going. Like, I've already got a pretty fleshed out design for 327, and obviously we stay flexible with those things because depending on what happens in 326, we obviously like to change things around, and I'm obviously not going to talk about it. However, it is 100% achievable. I have no doubt in my mind about that, and we already know obviously what's happening with the next PoE 2 expansion and so on, and all that is achievable. And I mean, currently it looks 100% success rate. But I'm the realist in me is always like, yeah, never 1000% no, but I can't see a world in where it doesn't succeed. Now, obviously, it's new for the company, it's new for me, it's new for everything. Like if we're talking about doing 6 releases a year, like 2 games, but we have expanded, we've figured our shit out, we know what we're doing now. It was pretty rough for a while there, but we're certainly on top of it now, and it would take something pretty severe for it to not, go out the way we now intend. So
makes sense. Yeah, you got the big August update coming, and then full release in December. How are you feeling going towards full release of Path of Exile 2 in December?
There's like this thing in me, and this is personally speaking, where I'm like, but I'm not sure exactly what the date is for that, by the way.
I thought I gotcha.
That is no. I'm not going to acknowledge that, but I'm also just not going to say anything about the specifics. But I'll ignore the date part and just say talking about full release. The main thing is obviously that like it's this thing where because we're adding more content, so like we did with 020, that wasn't just finishing what's there, we're also adding more, and so you're almost like moving the goalpost a little bit every single time. So there's an interesting thing where, personally speaking, we're like trying to keep up with that as we're going is kind of interesting because I want to make sure that the content we're adding is to a release grade, I guess you'd say, because like it's kind of interesting because like you could look at Path of Exile 1 or 2 and just be like, this game isn't, what does release mean? Because again, we're going to be making it for 15, 20, 30 years. Like, what is release? And so, yeah, it's obviously nice to have a full release and you get to play through the whole game, but it's not like the game as a developer, and especially as me, who's going to be making it and working on it and playing it for this long, there's like kind of like it's never really finished. So I appreciate that getting to a release goal is going to be amazing and feel real good for the team. But like to me, it's just the beginning, right? Like I'm just starting. So I don't know. I have a different perspective on it all again because I look at things so far in the future that
Yeah.
I'm yeah, bit of a different perspective. However, again, you're not going to bait me into getting any dates here.
No, no, I'm just having fun,
I know.
How has the balanced work-life schedule been going? Jonathan mentioned that in our last interview. Has it been going pretty well? No super late nights mostly for the team?
Lately, I'm just trying to think about exactly. So I mean, I'm pretty anti crunch, anti overtime personally.
Mm-hmm.
Now I'm coming from the perspective of I am in terms of for other people, for myself. I'll just do what I think is fun, and I don't mind. I'll do whatever's necessary for the game.
Mm-hmm.
That being said, I am obviously trying to appreciate my own work-life balance more as well. But I would say we've been pretty good lately. There's always a few rough spots here and there, but certainly lately it's been a lot better. I am constantly trying to just be like, you get maybe requests from staff to work overtime or need to crunch. I'll just be like, get that out of there. We're not doing that. We'll do that in the next patch. We'll do that later. You don't need to do that. Like, because honestly, like, yeah, sometimes things get scoped just like kind of out of control, and you just need to constantly be narrowing it down to actually what the players are going to need. And what you often can find is people are working on things that people aren't just ever going to care about. So it's important to constantly stay in there and get those things out of there. But I especially lately as well. I don't know why. I just took it upon myself. I'm trying to make sure that we're not burning out our staff, burning out the team, because again, it's not just trying to get to that release point. It is a forever grind. And if you can't have that stability and you can't be burning out your team, then you're not going to make it very far. So yeah, it's very important. Again, that's me thinking of this long distant future, not this short finish line here where it's like, oh, it's all good. We go full burn until release. It's like, no. We need to have a 10-year plan or a 20-year plan or something here just to make sure that people aren't frying themselves.
I can respect that a lot. It's really, really nice to hear because you hear all these stories about, developers who are forced to crunch. And when you hear about stories where developers are interested in doing more work, like I'm kind of like that, right? Like I want to stay late. If someone said, hey, you got to go home, you got to stop working on that, I'm like, okay. And then I keep working on it because that's what I want to do. Right. So I think there's a big difference between making people work overtime and
100%.
People who are passionate about working on a game and working overtime. And I think we don't have conversations like that enough about people who are super invested. And like, yeah, I've seen that online, and I really do appreciate the approach that I've heard from both you and Jonathan about how Grinding Gear Games handles it. So yeah, it's nice to hear. I'm curious, what is the thing that you're most excited about this big update? You just gave us the big presentation. I'm asking you about historical stuff and things. I didn't really ask you about this particular one. Tell me, what has you most excited? What are players really going to latch on to in your opinion?
Few things. I mean, it's always hard for me to choose because again, I always pick to work on the things I am passionate about. And I just assume that the players are going to echo what I find to be passionate, and it's been successful so far. But I always just love the bosses. The boss fights are the key. Like new Pinnacle bosses to me is just, I love it. And it's always the boss fights. But honestly, again, I would even say that, something like actually, there's too much here. There's too much. It's like I'm just thinking about all these different things in my head. I really like, obviously, bringing back Zana, like speaking narratively and talking about the game, like bringing back Zana and and being able to return to that storyline and set it up in a way that we can not only do it now, but, as a pre-teaser, then further that storyline even further again. In some expansions in the distant future, it's been set up in a way where that's possible, and I did that quite intentionally. And it's very cool because she was a very, very, very popular character who kind of just was like, yep, it's gone. And so being able to bring that back and see that through is very, very fun. And obviously then to get all the bosses with it, which is amazing. And then we get to kind of put a twist on the end game and do whatever we want going forward. So like the thing about this one, and this is something I'm very excited for later, is sure we've got these new mechanics now, we've got new crafting mechanics, everything. Do actually have kind of soft plans for the next expansion and the next in-game expansions, that is. So seeing all that through is going to be real fun over the next however many years. And then what else? I mean, I always like seeing things like the crafting mechanics and seeing how they play out. I think this one is quite simple in terms of improving dropped items on the ground, like just being able to find an item and ID it and hopefully get a good item. It kind of plays in the same way that the like tier 2 to tier 5 items do in Path of Exile 2, where like you have more hope identifying a tier 5 item going, this is probably going to be good or can be very, very good and has a higher probability of just every other item you're finding. So finding the items with a lot of memory strands are going to be like, oh, I want to ID this and hopefully get something very, very good. So improving dropped items is obviously huge for how I play. But honestly, on top of that, it's going to be, I'm a social player. I play with friends all the time. I play my support characters and they all play their character, their things, and I like to make them as OP as possible. But having the mercenaries play into that, where I can I'm thinking okay, I'm going to have my one mercenary that just obliterates everything while I support it. And then I'm going to have my support mercenary so that me and my mercenary can support my friends better. And it's just this giant support network of making everyone insanely strong. So that's also just exciting. I mean, but honestly, all of it, it's kind of hard for me to ever pick my favorites. Because again, I literally, when I am designing, doing the original scoping of every expansion, I'm like, if I suggest a thing I am not exceptionally passionate about, then what am I doing? Why would I do that? So I pick things that I think will be insanely valuable to the players, but mostly because they are valuable to me.
You have all these new updates that you can't wait to see the players really dive into. I am sort of curious, how do you keep coming up with new ideas for Path of Exile 1? It's been over 10 years. What's the specific, how many years have you been on the game?
I mean, I've been there for, again, 12, 13 years, coming on 13 years, I think.
It's been a bit, right? Yeah, so how do you keep pushing PoE 1 forward without jumping the shark, so to speak? Like adding something that would just totally break the immersion. And in your opinion, what's an idea that you think would have caused that? So it's a two-part question. How do you keep innovating over all this time, and what's something that will be one step too far?
Well, okay, how to keep innovating. Honestly, it's not that hard, and I don't know if that's just because it comes organically. There's a couple ways. One way is I look at a problem people have, problem players have, and I look at it from that perspective, and instead of just going, how can we just, put a band-aid on this and it's fixed, it's how can we design something immersive and fun that also solves that problem? So you're kind of coming at it from a different approach. Now that actually makes it a bit easier because you know what you're trying to solve. And so then you just need to make it epic. And that's not that hard. Making things epic is pretty easy. When you've got an entire team of artists and audio guys and everything, all of that, making things epic, that's easy. Solving the problems it's finding the problems that's the hard thing. And again, when you're playing a lot and you're listening to your community a lot, you're going to know what the problems are. So that comes as it's but then it's how do you pick the theme? I guess, look, that can be hard. We've had all kinds of strategies over time. Often it just results in random brainstorming, thinking on the weekend, just chatting with people, different developers. I'll just go talk to our head of audio and we'll just be rambling about some stuff, and all of a sudden we've come up with some random thing we can do in the next expansion, and it can also happen to solve a problem, and they say, oh, whoa, it's happening. So honestly, just talking to the staff often helps. Like actual having casual conversations about the game and about the content is like actually quite important. So it's not all just, professional official talk. It's like just sit down at lunch with a bunch of the game designers who happen to be playing the game the night before and are all just talking about their experience and what they like and what they don't like. And then all of a sudden you're like, I know what I want to do next league. Just check.
Do you have a notebook with like ideas?
No.
All right.
They just come. They just come. I generally don't forget the stuff, but again, I generally have some kind of thin plan for a while. But generally, you get, I've got the next kind of expansion kind of figured out and like a bunch of bullet points, and then I start expanding the bullet points. But honestly, just chatting with the team is the biggest way. It is the biggest and best way to get these things. There isn't some massive grand plan where it's like we know exactly what we're doing 3 years from now. We respond to the players, we respond to the community, we respond to the game, and so we are constantly addressing problems. And so, a league like Betrayal becomes stale, as it does, and as there will be another league that becomes stale or is already stale. And all of a sudden we can go, we need to give this a fresh coat of paint, so that's the objective. How we do that? Well, you then just have some brainstorming discussions, see what kinds of things people want to start doing with items or which holes in their builds they want to fill. And then you derive that down to a crafting system that can provide that solution. And then you're like, okay, and now we theme the league and that crafting system together. And now you've got, this league now offers this crafting system to solve these problems. And then players can fill those holes in or those gaps in their build. And now they're happy, we're happy, and then we just make it epic. Characters, narrative, dialogue, etc.
That's a really cool way to solve a problem. Like, just make something really neat around it. And I know PR is saying we're out of time, but just real quick, how would you break it? Like, what would be one thing that would be like way too far? Like an expansion that's all about kittens or something. I don't know.
I mean, look, it's important to not change the style of the game, because you're going to change the audience very drastically, and like that's not what you want to be doing. So, I mean, you are right. I mean, you could add kittens for like a day, but yes, if you get too cute. Look, it's meant to be a visceral game. It's meant to be dark horror gothic. If you start putting in something that isn't what the target audience of that is looking for, yes, it's going to fall apart very, very quickly. I can't say I have any specifics, but like, know your target audience. Make it for that target audience. Bring new people or fold people into your target audience, but like definitely don't just like pivot and go completely off. At least from an immersive or narrative standpoint, you can go pretty X Factor with the mechanics. You can get pretty out there with like we're gonna, with Blight when we're just like we're gonna add a tower defense to the game. That's fine, and the good thing is we get to do it for a league, and if it works, it sticks. If it doesn't, it doesn't. But don't add a tower defense using something that is not, some theme that is too kind of cute or too playful or something like that. You want to have it be, again, still very much fitting in that world, that Wraeclast, where it is quite horrific and not a pleasant place to live.
Got it. Well, Mark, thank you so much. I know we are at time. I really appreciate you taking a few moments to speak with me about Path of Exile. Really excited about the new update. Can't wait for 2 to release, maybe in December. We'll see. And I look forward to speaking with Grinding Gear Games again in the future.
Awesome. And thank you very much.
And as always at these events, you usually have a group session. Here is that section of the interview.
All right. So the first question we have is the plan to have more QOL, quality of life, and feature parity between the two games moving forward? Well, it's kind of a little bit, it's almost a two-parter. The way I look at it is that quality of life, yes. If we can improve the quality of life on one game or both or the other game, we're always going to do it. If it is a feature that exists in both, 100%, it is worth doing. Sometimes it's worth trying out in one game, and then if it's a success, the way we've done it, we port it to the other, and vice versa. I wouldn't say there's a long, we haven't planned this out for the future, but the intention certainly is the case that the moment something works for one, if it applies to the other, we will port it over. As for features, it's quite broad, but of course, There will be, in most cases, a lot of cases, yes, you'll find it can apply to both games. However, due to the context of the content, sometimes the feature will only apply to one and not the other. It depends. If it's around like kind of combat and player skills and whatnot, we obviously have some limitations. Whereas again, if it's around maybe, something to do with the passive tree, we can probably apply it to both. But we'd want to make sure that we consider the context. Of course, they are very different games with different pacing. And we do want to keep it that way. There are kind of two visions, and we are obviously wanting to make sure both are held up, as opposed to, just turning one game into the other, and all of a sudden you've got two of the same product. Second one's not a question, but hello. And then the third, how long can an Atlas memory thread be? 2 to 3 maps, or can we do long chains? Yes, in the presentation, I think there was like one that was an example of 4 maps, but the intention is that it is a little bit longer. I would say that you shouldn't be expecting anything less than, say, 5 maps, say 4 to 8 maps kind of range. We don't want to make them too long that it's like really annoying, of course, but they are pretty fun. You do get the extra skills. As you progress along the memory thread, you get more and more skills. They get a bit more intense, and then you also get the modifiers at the end of each one that affect all the subsequent ones. So even if it is longer, as much as the people who just want to farm the bosses are probably going to be like, oh my god, let me get through this. The people who actually want to juice the maps and they want to make the most and get the extreme amount of the influence and modifiers going on, they'll be happy to have long chains. So bit of both to appeal to both player types, ones who want to do more bossing and ones who want to juice their maps more, or enhance their maps. I keep using the word juice because it's what the players use, so if you don't know what it means, let me know and I'll elaborate. Next question. Given the focus on in-game content this time, is it safe to assume the new play experience for PoE1 won't be changed going forward? I wouldn't say that's entirely true. It's a little bit changed, especially for the core game, with some of the features from Settlers of Calgary being added to the core towns. So, like, even when you're playing through, you are getting the respecking. Now, I know you had it during Settlers of Calgary in 3.25, but that was restricted to the League. We didn't have that in the core game. So you're getting the respecking, you're getting the gambling, you're getting the currency exchange, which are 3 hugely popular features that are very, very good for new players. So I'd say that's like one of the main benefits that they're getting. The other thing, though, is, of course, yes, it is more in-game centric. And so, yes, it is more for the in-game, especially given last time, I'd say Settlers was a, good league for the start of the game, the end of the game, is pretty good at bringing in new people and appealing to a more casual audience, whereas this is more for your PoE players. However, it's still there. There's still balance updates. There's still ascendancy class updates. And I would honestly say the mercenary system is something that is exceptionally good for people who are, think of it this way. If you're struggling at the game, you being able to bring in a mercenary, which is throughout the entire game, you'll find them in every single area. You can get gear off them, or you can gear them up. They fight alongside you. They're quite powerful. And I would argue that the less proficient you are and the less geared you are, honestly, the more that they help, especially throughout the campaign. What you do is you find late game, once you are so powerful, because you can become effectively a god in Path of Exile, the mercenary become less and less useful. Now, they're still good, and they have auras, they have utility, they have a few bits and pieces like that, but I would actually say where they shine best is players that are, just kind of your average player who's playing your average build. So I would say, much like most leagues, our new player experience, you get this league out of it, and I would say this one probably honestly helps newer players more than anything else. So I think in that regard, it helps a lot, and it is a nice contrast to the end-game focused Atlas expansion. All right, next question we have. There are improvements to character classes. Are there any for Scion too? Not specifically for Scion, but it's not quite how, if you're talking about the Ascendancy class, But whenever we update, well, I guess you can say yes, there is, because whenever we updated the Ascendancy classes, we generally also do a pass on the Ascendant and update a lot of its notables to have the same stats. We would be doing the same thing here, so there'll be slight ones. But generally, most of the balance changes we're doing, aside from addressing the 5 Ascendancy classes that I mentioned, and of course the Ascendant will get a little bit of it. It's mostly just game-wide, so like changing how hand casting works and channeling spells and a bunch of that kind of stuff. So, I mean, whether or not you're a Scion, it's the benefit of Path of Exile. You can be any class and be playing any of these skills and builds. You'll get the changes nonetheless. What's the best class in this update? Well, that I suspect is a different answer from every single Path of Exile player you ask. Now, I am biased and I have my personal preferences, but I love playing support characters. I love playing with my friends and I love giving them auras. And so I'm going to be playing a support character nonetheless. I run my auras, I run my war cries. I especially love war cry support. However, you have to be in multiplayer. Well, actually, one thing that I think is very, very cool this time around is that I get to be a support character for my mercenary. So we'll see if my mercenary can do all the DPS, and I'll support him and see what happens. Who knows? Okay, next. And you said it's silly, but I'll answer it nonetheless. But do my stash tab purchases in PoE 2 work in PoE 1? Yes, almost all of them do. Any regular stash tab, quad tab, a lot of them are in Path of Exile 1 as well. There are some exceptions to the rule, which is that if you have a Socketables tab, for example, or I believe currently a Ritual tab, they will not be in Path of Exile 1 at this time. The Ritual tab will be added later, but the Socketables tab doesn't make sense in the context of PoE 1 at the moment. There are other tabs for that, and so it doesn't really work, and so some will, some will not. But look, anything you buy in either game, if it fits in the context of the other game, we will make it work there. We will put it there. It is not our intention that if you play both games, you have to purchase all the micros in either game. That is never going to be the case. Next question. Can your companion mercenary be involved in an encounter with another mercenary? Would they be taken into consideration for the scaling? They can, and they do not get taken in, so they don't make it harder beyond just normal. Well, actually, no, they just don't. So we specifically, good question actually, because we specifically handled this. So yes, your mercenary will help you with the other mercenaries, and they will not make it harder. That was the intention. Only other players will make it more difficult. No, so the question here is, does the mercenary only join the host of a party? Every player can have a mercenary active, which obviously you get a lot of stuff going on in an area where you got up to 6 players with 6 mercenaries. It is worth noting that a mercenary counts as half a party member as well, so technically this is the first time in the game we're allowing up to 9-player party scaling. Now we have changed how party scaling works a little bit to account for this, but it's going to allow for some pretty high-end difficulty and pretty high-end item drops or rewards. But yeah, you can certainly get your full party with your full set of mercenaries. Interestingly, when we first were designing it, we were going to have them take a party slot, but we ended up going away from that design. So we were going to have it that, for example, since there's a 6-player party maximum, we were going to have 4 players, which means you could bring 2 mercenaries. We ended up going away from that because we wanted to make sure that everyone could interact with the mechanic. Like, it would be pretty sad if, for example, you joined with your friends and then you couldn't use the league mechanic because they were already bringing mercenaries, or maybe you brought yours and theirs wouldn't come. So we ended up just going, all right, let's just have everyone bring them if they want, and then, which seems like the obvious answer, but we considered all the options. I mean, I'll answer it just because it's what's the worst class? I don't know. It doesn't exist. I don't know, but I know you said I could skip it as joking around, but still, I would. I'd like to say I don't even have an answer to that, even if I'm not joking around. I guess a way people answer that question is just by going onto the Poe Ninja website and just seeing which class has played the least, and you would argue that, statistically speaking, that is the class. I think that's probably all of them. So again, I just wanted to thank everyone for being here, and I hope you enjoyed the stream. And I hope you're excited to talk about and or play the game. Join us playing it on the release day. What's the map behind me? That is the Atlas. It is an Atlas map that has been framed. I also have my unique cards over there from ExileCon. I have down there, I have my, I don't know where the stream is cut actually, but I have a set of divination cards. And I have, a whole bunch of, my entire home office is just a bunch of PoE stuff that I've framed. Thanks, everyone.
Thanks for watching that, everybody. I am a big fan of Grinding Gear games. I'm a big fan of Path of Exile 2. I need to play more Path of Exile 1, but thank you for watching, and thank you to Grinding Gear Games for taking my questions. If you want to support, you can hit that subscribe button, hit that bell. That does help. Everybody hit the like button if you like the video, of course, or you can become a member. Big thanks to Chris Reddy, Phil Aroni, Spingetter, and Aries EMS for supporting. You can support on patreon.com/SaveStatePlus or right here on YouTube by becoming a member. I'm going to get out of here, but if you actually want to check out my past interview with Jonathan Rogers, some people might have missed it, you can do that by clicking this video right here. Hit the subscribe. I'm going to get out of here. I'll see you for the next one. Bye for now, everybody.